joined by Johnny Pilkington, six-time All-Ireland winner at senior level. So 4 of those are with Birr winning the Club All-Ireland, and 2 more for Offaly, of course, 1994 and 1998. First of all, Johnny Pilkington, have I left out any medals?
Well, yeah. Well, there's other kind of ones. I suppose that we have the colleges in '86, and unfortunately, because of the coronavirus, our community school was back in the All Ireland this year for the first time since that time. Um, and people would say that we went to hurling nursery in Birr Community School. So we've been in one All Ireland since 1986. So it's hardly a nursery. But the boys are back again this year, so which was good to see.
I was just wondering what to ask you first, and the first thing I decided that I wanted to ask you was, who's the most talented hurler that you ever played with?
You'd swear I was. We were in the pub with the boys at the counter, And my typical answer to them now would be, "Sure, I was the best, because I couldn't mark myself. But who was the most talented? Listen, there's numerous of them. Here in Offaly, we just rattle off John Troy and we rattle off Johnny Dooley and Brian Whelan, and we take them for granted, that kind of way. But throughout, listen, there's all different levels. Definitely with the lads, you're talking about Troy always had something special. John had, Jim had something special as well, but not in the skills level.
Very few did. What about when you were growing up, was there any player that you particularly wanted to emulate, whether it's inside Offaly or outside?
No, I had a very I have a very strange kind of thing when it kind of comes to Ireland. I enjoyed sport, and I remember looking at Ireland playing rugby, and being very interested in that at 12 and 13, and losing to Wales in in a Cardiff match, and I can't really say that at hurling, I wanted to go on and play for Offaly. Everything to me just kind of happened by kind of accident, and things kind of went from one step to another. I know when I started off with Offaly, a lot of that has to do with Offaly at the time had an awful lot of injuries, So, and that enabled me to get onto this. But I can't say no. Listen, I admired the John Fentons that era, and Steve Mahon of Galway. Their skills level and that's what they epitomise for me. The lovely smooth style about them, and that never flustered, and that's what probably attracted me more time than else.
You say that it nearly happened by accident. You playing with Offaly. Michael Verney was telling me, I told him I'd be speaking to you, and he said that you nearly had to be dragged to your first game when Padjo Whelan was over them, and that was against Meath or something.
Yeah, there was Padjo asked me to go to a couple of games. Padjo got over there in '89, and early on there was the Walsh Cup or that, and I think or a Division 2, and Offaly were playing in it. And he asked me to go to 1 or 2 games, and I said no. Was a light little lad probably, and as I said, the drive to play for Offaly at that time wasn't the be most. I don't know what was the thing I wanted to do, whether in sport. I played sport. I played GA on a Sunday. I played rugby the following Sunday. It was all on. So I was brought to one match. I think it was the Meath game, and I think it was. I remember that the winners actually went over to London to play some game over the winners of that. So I went to that game up in Meath. I don't really know how I got on at it, but I didn't go over to the England on the trip. So I kind of dragged a bit.
And I saw an interview you did when you retired back in 2001, was with Dermot Crowe in The Independent. And
Yes.
there was something about the old image of you, and the quote from you was, "You have me down as happy-go-lucky. I'd like to think that my performance in my best years were ones of determination, and that I never gave up. That's where I excelled. I never gave up. I tried all the time, no matter how things were." Do you still have to sort of fight to get that out there, that image out there?
Yeah, listen, the image is still there, and unfortunately it pops up every now and again on Facebook, and there's 1 or 2 interviews there that I don't particularly I look back and cringe, should I say. I suppose that's the image I had, and in a lot of ways it was the image I played with as well. But to give you examples, I know that we played Meath in the '98 championship, and we would have been kind of strong favourites going. And after 10 minutes, we felt the game. I felt the game was over. So it was kind of a. I don't mean to be disrespecting Meath, but the effort really wasn't there in that game, Whereas when you come on to a different game, and where the team that you'd be playing, and I always felt that the teams that we'd be playing, we wouldn't have. It was kind of we wouldn't have been favourites. So it required that lot more work, and those were the ones where I focused an awful lot more on. I have a friend in college who took photographs, and in UCD, and he took a photograph in '98, and one of the very first photographs is of me playing against Meath in '98, and I'm standing on the hurl in the middle of the field, sitting on the hurl in the middle of the field as play is going on, down the far end. And then at the end of that year, actually, I think the goal match after the All Ireland in '98, he has a similar one with me sitting on a hurl, in the middle of the field as play is going on. So,
did you, so, I mean, obviously you wouldn't have got as far as you did unless you were a hard worker and a good player and all that kind of stuff. Did you ever kind of play up to the image yourself during your career, or was it just a case of someone would ask you a question and just whatever came out, came out?
Yeah, I suppose, listen, I suppose there's a lot of immaturity in my hurling days in terms of not so much on the field, but definitely off it. I'd safely say, 30 years of age, I was going around like a 20-year-old and acting like a 20-year-old. And that was probably more the problem of it. Again, I didn't think much of hurling or anything as well outside the field. My own attitude at that time, and even when I'm coaching teams, is, listen, you come to a training session, you do your training session as best as you can, you do the match as best as you can, the final whistle goes, you put down your hurl, and then, your life is your own. And that's really as well what I approached it with as well, that once the game was over on the Sunday, regardless of what I did, as long as I performed in the field, it was kind of my business,
Would you have a high point in terms of like when you felt you played your best hurling for Offaly?
A high point. I can't say it was anything. I'm quite happy with the fact that I never really played bad as such when Offaly were playing the big games. No, I never really played outstanding either, But I always felt coming off the field that, could I have done more? Maybe in certain situations I could have done more. Did I do as good as I could on the day? Yeah, I definitely did. That's what I felt. So I've never came off a game or whatever. Well, I suppose maybe there was a couple of occasions there where you'd be disappointed with your physical preparation. Maybe the week before mightn't been as good as it should be, and the performance would reflect that. So there would have been probably a bit of guilt in terms of, well, listen, you should have kind of maybe done an extra lap or two, or
Do you have one in mind?
But pardon?
Is there a game in mind when you say that?
Well, it was actually more club. It was more club games than anything. Actually, there was the Wexford game in '99. I think we won it, but I was at a wedding on the Friday, which continued on to the Saturday, and all day Saturday. So, I wasn't in the best of shape on the Sunday. I kind of got through it, but not. You wouldn't be. I wouldn't be awarding medals for it now.
So when I was going through your career, you were captain in 1995, and I suppose a lot of people would have expected you to beat Clare in that final because you were going in as reigning champions, and Clare hadn't been there before. Do you still think about the fact that 1995 was your chance to lift the All Ireland yourself as captain?
Yeah. Listen, it's just a pity. It's a pity that it was an opportunity. It was an opportunity in the way that we had a 3-point lead. We had scored a goal. We had 4 or 5 chances to put balls over the bar. We could have easily won that game as well by 6 or 7, 8 points. But once we got the goal, the next ball that came, it went wide, and just. I often tell the story that in '94 I gave a pass to John Troy, and John Troy's ball went just inside the post. when we were 2 points up. And in '95, I gave him a similar pass, and it went just outside the post. So, the man above said, "No, you're not putting 2 in a row." So it's a little bit of a regret. That's in terms of missing out in that situation. But I think we did peak that year in the '95 Leinster final, and we played down the next day or in the next game and that. And I always felt that after July, we'd be training, and I've often said it there that Derry O'Donovan, our physical coach, would be putting out the cones or whatever, and that enthusiasm wasn't there to do the cone work that was there prior to that. And maybe that's the fact of winning going on at that stage. So in that kind of regard, we say, well, listen, and I often say to teams that are in, these small little things that would have I just felt that might have got us over that line. If we were really thinking, it wouldn't have made, if we were really focused and if we really wanted to do it, it wouldn't have made a difference if Derry O'Donovan at the time or Eamon Cregan told us, listen, run backwards there through Tullamore naked, But I just felt that we just came up that little 0.5% short in preparation.
And like you mentioned also in an interview about having to having to watch back so many times Anthony Daly lifting the cup because it was Clare's first time in so long. Do you remember actually being on the field looking up at him lifting the trophy that time?
No. I mean, at that stage, no, I didn't. I don't. I can't even remember if I went into the dressing room or if I stayed on the field. I mean, once the final whistle, and I see it there every now and again on the clip of the final whistle of that, and it is absolutely marvelous when you see it that the crowds that just kind of came on, on the field when you're winning and the run past, and it's great when you win. But they're running past you when you lose, and I just remember just at the final whistle, shaking hands with Ali Baker, and then just walking the head down into the tunnel. This is what I was saying. I can't really remember. I don't know if I stayed on the field. If you noticed there was that many on the field, but I do remember afterwards. I was in the dressing room as captain, and I think one of the reporters afterwards, like again, final whistle had gone. In the dressing room, I'll hang around here for a little bit, all right, but I'm not going to hang around and go on and go to do and get on with it and that. Whereas I suppose maturity at that time would have come back and said, listen, you need to present a good case here. And I had left the dressing room, and before even the reporters came in, obviously they were consumed obviously with Clare and wanted to get them, so I had gone. And I think I met one reporter. When I was talking to my parents outside underneath the Hogan stand afterwards, and he had a few words with me, and I think someone passed the comment like a rat deserting a sinking ship, So, but listen, I wasn't hanging around the dressing room as such. We had done our formalities in the dressing room, hard luck lads, blah blah blah, and off.
Did you take that sort of stuff personally, like a rat deserting a sinking ship, like with criticism?
Listen, I suppose everybody kind of takes it a bit, you all like to be told that you're a great lad, and but again, some of it would, and it depends on where the source is coming from. It depends on who's saying it, and that, but not all the time. No.
When you think back on your career and the rivalries you had, like you've mentioned Clare, we've talked about Clare there, and then of course the trilogy with Clare in 1998. Do you think back of the rivalry with them, or is it more like Wexford or Kilkenny, or who do you think of?
I don't think of anyone, because we had very good games with lots of teams. We had very good games with Kilkenny. We had very good games with Cork. We had very good games with Clare. We had no good games with Tipperary because we never played them in the championship. Which. I suppose the brother-in-law is a tip man, and that would have been interesting if it arose. But so I think Dennis Walsh of the thing, I think he put it very well, that actually Offaly at those times and in that period were nearly the East. That the levels of teams that did come up to, that we were able to rise our game and play the Corks and play the Clares, and they ended up, all these games ended up being, the different counties ended up being fairly good and very, we weren't a physical team, although we big lads. So it was always a moving game. It was always, there was no. I don't think in our time, I think only one. I think that Regan was the only lad that got sent off, and at that stage, he's probably diet had let him down, and his physical condition had gone more onto the conditioning side and or more on the physical side and the conditioning side. So, we, as I say, we weren't a dirty team, and so that enabled the games that we played in to play hurling the ball. So in that kind of way, the quality of hurling that we played against teams seemed to be, a bit better.
How do you think
But we know right. But we know right.
how do you think your Offaly team would do in modern hurling with modern hurling preparation?
Finest, yeah, no issue. Yeah, listen, there wouldn't been any issue at all. I mean, we done what we were asked 95% of the time. There was issue or small little um, unprofessional like conduct as such, if you want to put it that way. But yeah, I always feel that what was there at that time we done it. What would be there now we do it. So I suppose that the one thing about the Offaly team is that over the whole period, like Clare had that one manager. Over that period, Wexford to talk about Liam Griffin, and he came and he won the thing. Jimmy Barry was there with Cork and that. Kilkenny had their couple of managers going on until Cody came along. Such, but that Offaly team had got to 4 Club All Irelands, nearly 4 different managers. So the management really, when we kind of look back, and although they were fairly important and that, really the players, you kind of go down and the players themselves seem to have kind of a bit of a life in their own as such, more so than just say, Clare will always be associated with Gerald McMahon. But when you kind of come to Offaly, you'll have to associate Eamon Cregan, you have to associate Michael Bond and Pat Cleary and Pat Flory and them.
And it's true, but who would have been the main leaders in the dressing room? Sure, Brian Whelan, certainly with how he played and the fact that he was man of the match in both county and Club All Irelands, just how he did it on the field. But would there have been kind of very specific sort of leaders in terms of being vocal in the dressing room?
They would have, one of I feel that the best leader that we had was Martin Anamy, who wasn't that much of a talker. I mean, you had Brian and you had Michael Dignan and then to be doing the talking. But in every team and every team that wins in that, there's 4 or 5 different lads and talking in the dressing room is kind of only fairly mediocre kind of unbelievable kind of stuff with the under 12s, beating tables. It just doesn't resonate, whereas when you come onto the field then, and if you take a look at it, listen, Brian was always up there at the top of his game. Martin Hanamy was always up there at the top of his game. You had Kevin Keenan, you had Kevin Martin. I mean, there was just this stability, this consistency of lads that went out then and done their job. And I think that's when, Offaly had relatively a settled team there for a very long period of time, and that's because the lads did done their job. So when you do your job, there's no need for talking.
Between club and county, did you ever line out in an All Ireland final thinking we're not going to win this game, or did you always have full belief you would?
I always felt my own best preparation was that I felt that we were always going to be up against it irregardless, and it didn't make a difference who I was on. That he was always going to. I always felt that he was probably much better than me, which helped me kind of go and work that little bit harder or try that all. If I went out there thinking that the lad I was on or that we were going to win it, I feel that probably we wouldn't have put in that. It wouldn't have been 100%, or there'd be something missing in it. So I have always my preparation. Would you have gone out before any All Ireland and say you're going to win it? I wouldn't have been of that thing at all. I would say, listen, this is we're up against a team here. We're going to have to perform. So.
Another thing Michael Verney said to me is that some lads are very obsessive about their sticks, but you would have picked up the leg of a chair and hurled with it. Is that true that you weren't that particular with your hurleys?
I know, I wasn't. I get my hurls up the road here from Brian Gatz, and I always have it, and every time, and I even go now for the kids and that, I said, listen, take down my template there, yeah, and you just laugh at it, So yeah, listen, as long as it's relatively light and that, you'd work away with it and that. Yeah, no, that'd be straightforward enough.
Is it true that you once had a charity match in Thurles and you got caught in the traffic and it didn't quite happen?
Yeah. Yeah, well, of course, there was always I think that was the Babs era, and there was a fundraiser down there for against Tipperary. But I think actually the issue actually was at the time was that Offaly played club championship matches on the Sunday, and we were to play at 6 o'clock on that evening. And I know this happened on a couple of occasions, all right. And I think the Babs one, in all fairness, there was something on. Was there a Munster final, say a Munster semi-final in Park Equate or something? But there was traffic anyway going into Thurles or something, and a couple of lads got caught in that. A couple of other lads just didn't bother going. That happened with under Eamon Cregan as well. Again, fixing challenge matches at 6 o'clock on a Sunday evening after local championship matches. I remember John Troy going up to one of the selectors, and I was standing beside him afterward. He was actually playing in Birr, and he goes to the selector here. After getting a serious belt on my finger now, and I think it's in trouble. It's in bother. Now I was looking at his finger. I'm no doctor, I'm no surgeon, all right? I'm not even a nurse, all right? But it was nothing wrong with that finger, So that was quite good. Regan came out another day, actually, in all fairness to him, and we were after playing over in Tullamore in the championship match, and we were to play a challenge match down. He turned to us and says, lads, I was talking to Tony Murphy, the hurling secretary, says, that match is off down. Don't worry about it. So we all went into Tullamore, had a pint, and obviously they arrived down with 10 or 11. Things happen. Things happen.
Is it true that I'm sure maybe the story's on the record already, but I was told that did John Troy go out one game with a packet of cigarettes in his socks for the second half?
Oh no, that wasn't actually. That was actually involved with myself. And it wasn't the pack of cigarettes, it was the cigarette lighter. So when we came in, at that time, you could smoke indoor. You could smoke. So we came in at half time of the match, and myself and Troy would go to the jar and you'd have a cigarette and that. But so obviously you take a cigarette and the cigarette lighter out of your pocket, into the shower, have it all right. So you've nowhere to put the cigarette lighter then, and you put down your sock, and so off you go anyway, and you go back in, and then there's half going on and this and there. But when I came back in then after a half time, I took off my sock and here the cigarette lighter fell out. But it wasn't the pack of cigarettes. No, that's how stories.
A bit of a Chinese whisper there. Do you have any particular highlights from your run with the club with Birr? Because you were so successful for so long. But is there any season where it fully came together, or the journey was particularly special?
To me that would have been the '98 one. The '98 Club All Ireland. In what way? I suppose we had a couple of very good games against Clare Castle in that, and then I suppose just to crown it off, we played Sarsfields, and Sarsfields were a very good side. Well, for a good side in terms of a very good club side. At the same time, Joe Cooney was on it, Copper McGrath, the very good sprinkling of intercounty players. Now Joe at that stage was kind of on the way down, but he was still a formidable force, and I thought Birr actually played well. So it really was the Birr team kind of coming on, and that Sarsfields, of course, were the first team to put club titles back to back. So it was great to beat them in the final and beat them. We were well in control of that game.
Seeing as I have you, I might as well ask you, what's Michael Verney what's his hurling career been like with Birr, and what's his form been like in the last year or two?
I had the pleasure of training Verney, and I think he's wasted all his career in a cornerback. Unbelievable. Like, he's just, Verney actually wrote on the Independent there a couple of weeks ago about actually not having in a black card, if I'm not mistaken. Now you're going to tell him that's only because Verney could only tackle a lad by pulling them down and throwing them back. But if he had to tackle by actually having, not pulling them down, not holding on to them, and not dragging out of them, well, that's where your black card comes in. So that's why he wants the black card out of it. But I do have to say, I had Bernie and I had him at centre forward, and I just think he had that centre forward. He had pace and he had hurling and that. But unfortunately, he was injuries. He had very stress fractures and that, so curtailed his career. But it was a pity. But listen, that was it. He was in a corner, but doesn't want the black card because he couldn't defend a forward.
I'll ask you a final thing then. The line's just breaking up a small bit, but I'll just ask you one final thing.
Right.
What are you making of Offaly here? Michael Fennelly's after taking over obviously a number of desperately bad years, but are you feeling optimistic about the future?
Optimistic in what Michael Fennelly is bringing to it. A little bit disappointed, and more than the rest of them are, in terms of that. There was two challenges this year in terms of Kerry and Antrim. We probably should have beaten Antrim. Just got hit by one of our own sucker punches against Antrim. But lose the Kerry down, and Kerry was better. So I mean, that's a little bit of disappointment. The Christie Ring is on next. We don't know how that's going to pan out and that, but we needed, an influx of dynamic players, fast, I think, just to bring us on that bit, and it's a little bit hard to see it at the moment. Michael's job is going to have to try if he can unearth some of these. Again, I think the game itself is about speed now, and you see the good teams and that, and they have these lads that are exceptionally basic, the Conor Whelans, the Olympic lads and that, and they're lacking that little players with that genuine piece of speed. And if we can get 2 or 3 of them, we'll be grand. But after that, Michael's job is going to be to try and solidify it, try and bring on young guys, try and play it at a faster level. But when you're playing at this level, your hurl slows down, your thinking slows down. So not overly optimistic, but not pessimistic either. I'd expect us to win the Christie Ring, and I'd be of old stock as such. I'd still expect us, to take on the Leashes and the Westmeads and that, and be on a par with them. Now our results just aren't there to that. I've no basis to say that. Only just I'm old stock. No.
Well, Johnny, just breaking up again there, but thank you very much for your time. You've been very good. Hopefully, Offaly's fortunes improve, and I enjoyed chatting to you.
Thanks very much, Shane, and mind yourself.